39% taking a majority of layups. Angel, whether you're a rookie, whether you're a veteran, whether you're a high school player, whether you're a kindergartner, 39% on layups and putbacks isn't that great.
And you can't say they're not stat padding, because the game against the Fever, all the starters were out and Angel Reese was still in so she could get her double-double, right? And then there was a game, I forget who they were playing. They were losing by 20 again, and they pulled all the starters but Angel Reese. As soon as she gets the double-double, they pull her out the game. That's stat padding. And if you deny that, then you're just delusional.
Angel Reese is back in the spotlight. But this time, it's not for anything on the court. Once again, the spotlight is on Reese, though the attention she's garnering isn't exactly the kind of praise you'd want to bask in. Instead of refining her game during the off-season like many of her peers, Reese has found herself embroiled in social media drama. And let's just say, her latest online exchanges are raising more than a few eyebrows. As other WNBA players pour their energy into honing their skills and preparing for the upcoming season, Reese appears to be more focused on podcast appearances and airing her grievances, whether it's about her salary or her critics, than getting down to business. While she does eventually step onto the practice floor, her training choices and, more notably, her public behavior have sparked mounting criticism. Fans and analysts alike are asking, is she losing focus on the game at the worst possible time? One incident, in particular, had the internet buzzing. A fan took to Twitter to call out Reese's struggles with shooting, specifically her inability to make layups. Rather than addressing the feedback with grace or simply ignoring it, Reese hit back with a sharp retort. "You're just laid up with your dog at home, hating," she fired off, adding fuel to the growing social media firestorm. The response was immediate and fierce. Fans mocked her not just for her shot-making woes, but for her lack of poise in handling valid criticism. The comment section quickly filled with jabs like, "Teach her how to make a layup, please," and references to her unflattering stats. It's hard to argue with the numbers when you're shooting 39% on layups. But the social media missteps didn't stop there. On her podcast, Unapologetically Angel Suyams, she addressed some of the backlash, particularly from fans of Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Reese claimed that it was mostly rival fans, Clark's supporters, Indiana's faithful, who were unfairly piling on, but her attempt to defend herself only seemed to inflame the situation further. What was intended to be an explanation only came off as dismissive, and her comments did little to win over the critics who felt her priorities were skewed. Now, here's where things take a more troubling turn. Because while the online back and forths are entertaining, there's a deeper issue lurking: Reese's performance on the court. The numbers, sadly, aren't flattering. For someone who is expected to dominate in the paint, the statistics tell a different story. Her shooting accuracy last season was a dismal 39.1%, far below the league average. For context, a player in her position, 6.3 and primarily working around the basket, should be shooting closer to 60% on close-range attempts, not struggling with a 44.5% shooting clip from within 5 feet. Her rebounding stats, which would normally be seen as a positive, also raise questions. Yes, Reese led her team in offensive rebounds, but a closer look shows that many of those boards came off her own missed shots, hardly a sustainable strategy for team success. Fans and critics have begun to call this stat padding, and in some cases, they've pointed to games where Reese played extra minutes to secure a double-double, even when her team was well behind. In one particular game, with all the starters pulled, Reese stayed in just long enough to rack up her numbers before being taken out as soon as she hit her milestone. This performance gap becomes even more glaring when compared to some of Reese's peers. Take Caitlin Clark, for example. The Iowa star, who spends much of her time on the perimeter, has been able to shoot an impressive 62% within 5 feet of the basket, all while also leading the league in three-pointers and assists. Her stats reflect a player who is developing and refining her skills, while Reese's numbers suggest a stagnation in key areas of her game. Angel Reese is undeniably one of the most high-profile names in the WNBA, sitting comfortably behind only Caitlin Clark as one of the league's biggest stars. But as much as she commands attention, there's a growing concern about whether she's focused on the right things. It's not just about her status or her individual stats, it's about her ability to perform in a role that the Chicago Sky desperately needs her to fill. The team requires cornerstone players who can turn opportunities into results, not simply rack up attempts. But Reese's numbers, and increasingly her off-court behavior, are under scrutiny, and the stakes are high. Her struggles with shooting have become a hot topic, and fans and analysts alike are drawing connections between her statistical shortcomings and her off-season distractions. With so much time spent on social media spats, public drama, and brand-building opportunities, Reese has failed to show that she's addressing her weaknesses. And when poor shooting and questionable decision-making collide with social media rants and practice videos that miss the mark, patience wears thin. If Reese doesn't step up her game, this season could quickly become one of frustration, both for her and for her team. Enter the practice video, a chance for Reese to show her critics that she's putting in the work, ready to improve. Unfortunately, what was meant to silence the doubters only became another point of contention. Rather than providing the proof fans were waiting for, Reese's video raised even more questions about her priorities. Instead of honing her skills in the paint, where she struggled mightily last season, the video showed her practicing three-pointers and mid-range jumpers. For a 6'3" power forward whose entire role on the court should revolve around dominating near the basket, the focus on outside shooting seemed like a bizarre choice. Fans were quick to voice their confusion, with one commenting, "She can't even make layups consistently, but she's out here trying to play like Caitlin Clark?" The reality is harsh. Reese shot a woeful 39.1% from the field last season, and a significant chunk of her attempts came within 5 feet of the basket. So why, with such clear inefficiencies in her game, was she practicing skills that didn't align with her role? It wasn't just the drills she chose to focus on, it was what she didn't address. Her training failed to tackle the glaring issues she faces near the rim, where she ranked among the worst in the league for players at her position. Analysts are now questioning whether Reese truly understands her strengths and weaknesses as a player. She needs to refine her inside game and work on finishing under pressure, one fan commented. Instead, she's focusing on skills that are more aligned with guards like Caitlin Clark, not a power forward who needs to dominate in the post. This isn't the first time Reese's offseason decisions have left fans scratching their heads. While players like Caitlin Clark are posting videos of intense, role-specific drills, Reese's practice video felt more like a branding opportunity than a serious effort to improve. The disconnect between her practice focus and her on-court needs only fueled the fire of her critics. Imagine if your first-round draft pick had the season Reese had: injuries, controversies, and a podcast where she's airing grievances about everything in the league. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark keeps her head down and quietly works on her craft. The difference in approach couldn't be more stark. To make matters worse, this practice video came on the heels of an off-season packed with social media spats, red carpet appearances, and a lot of attention-grabbing behavior that only made it harder for fans to take Reese seriously. Many questioned whether the video was an attempt to quiet her detractors or simply another bid for attention. Either way, it backfired, further cementing the narrative that Reese is more concerned with her public persona than her performance on the court. The most recent incident to stoke the fire was a practice video Reese posted, which, instead of proving her commitment to improvement, became yet another source of criticism. Intended as a way to show her doubters that she's working on her game, the video instead raised more questions than answers. Why was a 6'3" power forward, whose role is to dominate near the basket, practicing three-pointers and mid-range jump shots? Fans quickly pointed out that, with her notoriously inefficient shooting close to the rim last season, focusing on perimeter shooting seemed out of touch with her needs as a player. Instead of addressing her glaring inefficiencies in the paint, where she struggled to finish plays, Reese appeared more concerned with adding new skills that didn't align with her primary role. This isn't the first time Reese's off-season choices have puzzled both fans and analysts alike. While her peers, like Caitlin Clark, have been posting videos of intense, role-specific training, Reese's content seems more like a branding exercise than a commitment to refining her craft. At a time when she should be honing the skills that would make her a more effective player, like finishing through contact and improving her shooting accuracy under the basket, Reese's focus seems to be on cultivating her public image. That disconnect, fans argue, is what's fueling the growing concern that Reese is more focused on fame than the fundamentals of her game. The backlash to her practice video didn't stop with fans. Even basketball legends like Shaquille O'Neal and Sue Bird weighed in, sending a clear message that Reese's off-season behavior was under the microscope from every angle. Shaq, long a supporter of Reese, shocked many when he compared her to role players rather than the star she's expected to be. His blunt criticism, calling her the female Antoine Jameson, was a reminder that potential means nothing without consistent performance. For a player with Reese's talent, to be compared to Jameson, a solid but unspectacular player, was a wake-up call. This wasn't just a critique. It was a red flag that Reese's future in the league could be in jeopardy if she didn't course correct. Sue Bird, a four-time WNBA champion, echoed that sentiment in a more measured but equally significant way. Bird reminded Reese that basketball should always come first, emphasizing the importance of focusing on the game as the primary vehicle for achieving success. "Basketball is your vehicle," Bird said, adding that it should be the driving force behind everything else. Reese's podcast and her off-court persona are all well and good, but they need to be secondary to her performance on the court. Otherwise, she risks squandering the opportunity to become one of the league's greats. In contrast, Caitlin Clark, Reese's peer, has become a blueprint for young players who want to build both on- and off-court legacies. Clark manages to stay grounded in her game while balancing her off-court activities. Whether it's participating in charity events or spending time with family, Clark has consistently maintained a strong focus on what matters most: basketball. Her training videos show a player who understands her strengths and is focused on honing the skills that will make her a complete player. Whether working on her three-point shooting, her mid-range game, or improving her finishing ability at the rim, Clark's approach is a model of discipline and consistency. She's earned respect not just for her skill on the court, but for the way she balances fame with hard work. The contrast between Clark's approach and Reese's off-season behavior couldn't be more pronounced. While Clark remains laser-focused on basketball, Reese appears distracted by her personal brand and the surrounding noise. This discrepancy has only deepened the narrative that Reese, despite her raw talent, may be missing the mark when it comes to what truly matters in the WNBA. As she heads into the new season, the pressure is on for Reese to prove that she's more than just a headline. If she wants to live up to her potential, she must find the balance between her personal brand and her basketball career. Her raw talent is undeniable, but the reality is that talent alone won't sustain her in a league that demands constant growth and evolution. Reese's upcoming season will be crucial, not only for her career, but for how she's perceived by fans, analysts, and fellow players. The WNBA is full of players who've risen to legendary status by keeping their focus where it belongs, on their game. Reese has the opportunity to shift the narrative and show everyone that she's more than the distractions of the off-season. The question is, will she embrace the challenge? Or will she continue to be overshadowed by the noise surrounding her? One thing is certain: the road to greatness requires relentless focus, and the ball is in her court.